So, to be honest with you guys, I didn't grow up dreaming of a perfect family or anything. Like, I never had that white picket fence fantasy. I just wanted peace and something calm. You know, like a little routine, some real love, a safe space where I didn't have to overthink every breath I took. And for a while, I thought I had that with my husband, Derek. We met in college. I was working at the front desk of the campus gym, and he came in nearly every day, always forgetting his ID, always trying to charm his way in. At first, I thought he was just another overconfident guy in basketball shorts, but there was something different about him. He was goofy, kind of awkward in a cute way, and he actually listened. Like, really listened. It wasn't long before we were inseparable. Fast forward 8 years. We're married. We have a beautiful 3-year-old son named Eli, and we live in this cozy little townhome outside of Portland. Derek works in IT, and I run a small online Etsy shop where I sell handmade nursery decor. It's nothing crazy, but it pays some bills and lets me stay home with Eli, which I love. Now, the part I never factored into my peace fantasy, his mom, Sharon. At first, she seemed harmless. Kind of quirky, overly into essential oils and talking about astrology like it was the gospel, but whatever. I figured every family has their version of weird, right? But then we got pregnant, and that's when I started seeing the cracks. Sharon has this way of acting like everything is about her. Like, if I had morning sickness, she'd go, "Oh, I had that too, but way, way worse." Mine lasted all 9 months, and I still went dancing every weekend. If I mentioned a craving, she'd immediately pivot the convo to her favorite pregnancy snacks. Everything I went through somehow became a story about her, as if I was borrowing her uterus or something. I'd brush it off most of the time. I mean, she lived a few hours away, and we only saw her on holidays or special occasions. But then Eli was born, and it was like she activated some kind of demon mode. She started visiting more, unannounced, just showing up at her front door, like she owned the place. And look, I totally get it. She was excited to be a grandma and all that, so I tried to give her grace. I really did. But it started getting weird. She wouldn't call him Eli. She'd call him Elliot, which isn't even his name. Derek and I chose Eli together. It's short for Elijah, but we don't use that unless he's in trouble, you know? But Sharon decided she just didn't like it. "I think Elliot sounds more elegant," she told me once, like I was the babysitter, not the mother. I tried correcting her, gently at first. "His name is Eli. We really love how it sounds." But she'd just wave it off. "I'll call him what I want. He knows who I mean." She also kept referring to herself as Mama when talking to him, not Grandma. It was freaking weird. I brought it up to Derek once, just like, "Hey babe, is it me, or is your mom kind of acting like she thinks Eli is hers?" And he just laughed. "Babe, you're overthinking again. She's harmless. That's just how she is." Every time I brought something up, he'd say the same thing. "That's just how she is." Like, I started to hate this sentence. It became this blanket excuse for every inappropriate thing Sharon said or did. But the worst part? I started repeating it to myself too. Like, yeah, maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe I'm being hormonal. Maybe I'm just tired and cranky from being a new mom. But no, I wasn't crazy, now I know that. Because then came the comment. The one that broke everything. We were at Eli's 3rd birthday party. I had planned the whole thing, a little backyard setup with dinosaur balloons, dino-shaped chicken nuggets, even a mini bounce house I found on Facebook Marketplace. He was so excited. He kept running around in his little green dino hoodie, roaring at everyone like the cutest little T-Rex you've ever seen. Derek was grilling. My mom was chatting with some of our friends, and Sharon was, well, hovering like always. I was helping Eli open gifts when he unwrapped this toy drum set, something he'd been begging for since he saw one on YouTube. He was over the moon, jumping up and down, yelling, "Thank you." And Sharon, standing right behind him, smiles sweetly, pats his head, and says, "You can thank the surrogate for bringing you into the world." I froze. Like, my whole body just stopped working. Eli looked up at me, confused. He tilted his head and asked, "What's a surrogate?" I don't even remember what I said. I think I muttered something like, "We'll talk about it later," and rushed him off to another pile of gifts. But inside, I was shaking. My hands, my chest, even my legs. Shaking from pure rage. A surrogate? Like I was just the vessel? The freaking carrier? No love, no identity. Just someone who did the labor so she could play this pretend mom game with my son? I walked into the kitchen, locked the door behind me, and just stood there with my fists clenched and trying not to cry, trying not to scream. Derek came in a minute later, asking if everything was okay. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Your mom just called me a surrogate in front of our son. Tell me you heard that." He looked away and then said, "Oh, babe, come on. She was just joking." No freaking way. That wasn't a joke. That was venom. That was her finally saying what she actually thought of me and doing it in front of my child. And that was the exact moment something inside me broke. I said it without even thinking. If she really thinks I'm just a surrogate, then she doesn't need to see us again. Ever. And I meant it. I just said it as calmly as I've ever said anything in my life. Derek looked like he didn't even recognize me. I swear he looked like someone had slapped him. Like he couldn't decide whether to defend his mom or say something to me, and instead, he just froze. "Babe, you don't mean that," he finally muttered. I didn't flinch. "Yeah, I actually do." I think he expected me to backtrack. To say I was just emotional. or that I didn't mean to overreact. But I didn't. I just walked past him out of the kitchen, grabbed Eli from the living room where he was busy drumming his little heart out, and told him it was time for a snack upstairs. I didn't even say goodbye to Sharon. The party wrapped up quietly. Derek's face was tight the whole time, but he didn't say anything else. Not to me, not to his mom. My friends could tell something had shifted, but no one wanted to ask. After the last guest left, I came downstairs and started cleaning up, thinking, he'll say something now. He has to. And he did. But not what I needed to hear. "You really embarrass my mom," he said, standing in the doorway like a freaking statue. I dropped a plastic cup into the trash and just stared at him. "I embarrassed her?" She said she was joking. "You didn't have to make it a whole thing. She came all this way for Eli's birthday, and you shut her out." I don't even know how to explain what it feels like when someone gaslights your entire experience. Like, I was already doubting myself because that's what people like Sharon do to you. They twist reality just enough to make you feel like maybe you're the problem. But I wasn't the problem. She called me the surrogate. In front of our son. That's not a joke. That's her making it very clear how she sees me. He didn't answer. Would you let anyone talk about you like that? Would you let someone call you a sperm donor in front of Eli and just, I don't know, laugh it off or something? Still nothing. Just this awkward shrug like he didn't want to pick a side. And I think that was the moment I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. I always thought of him as the peacekeeper. You know, the type who avoids confrontation, who plays both sides because he doesn't want drama. But avoiding conflict when someone disrespects your wife, the mother of your child, isn't being peaceful. It's being a coward. I went to bed that night with Eli curled up next to me. He still smelled like cupcakes and juice and sunscreen. I held him so close because honestly, I felt like I was losing everything else. The next morning, Derek left early without saying much. I didn't expect him to apologize. I don't think I even wanted one at that point. I just wanted him to understand. But instead, I got a text around noon. "Mom says she's willing to apologize if you agree not to keep Eli away from her. She's hurt too." I stared at my phone for like 10 full minutes. "She's hurt too? Are you kidding me?" She dropped a comment that basically erased my entire motherhood, reduced me to a body she borrowed, and she's the one who's hurt? That was when I decided I needed some space. Not just from Sharon, but from Derek too. I told him I was taking Eli to my sister's for a few days, and he didn't fight me on it. Just said, "Fine, maybe that's best." But I thought this man had my back. I thought we were partners. But when it came down to me or his mother, he picked neutrality, which, let's be real, is just a fancy word for not choosing me. At my sister's place, I finally had a moment to breathe. Alicia's the kind of person who doesn't sugarcoat anything. The second she saw me, she raised her eyebrows and went, "Okay, what the hell happened now?" I told her everything. From Sharon showing up uninvited, to the name thing, the mama nonsense, and all the way to the surrogate comment. And she just stared at me, jaw on the floor. "Yeah, in front of Eli," I said. Alicia shook her head so hard I thought it might fall off. That woman's out of her mind. And I needed that. I needed someone to validate what I was feeling. Because when you live around people who constantly minimize your emotions, you start doing it to yourself. You start thinking, maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe I should just let it go. But no, not this time. That night, after Eli fell asleep watching Toy Story on Alicia's couch, I sat in the kitchen with my laptop and a notebook. I don't even know why I grabbed the notebook. I guess I just needed to see the truth on paper. I started writing a list. 2 columns. One side said, things Sharon has done, and the other side said, how Derek responded. Called Eli by a fake name, she's quirky. Said I was hormonal when I asked her to stop. Just ignore her. Took over our baby shower and made it all about her. She just wants to be involved. Made backhanded comments about my parenting. That's just how she jokes. And now, just the surrogate. She didn't mean it. I stared at that list for so long. It made it so real. It made it undeniable. I wasn't being dramatic. I was being disrespected. Over and over again. And the man I married was letting it happen. The next day, I decided I wasn't going back. Not yet, at least. I texted Derek. Eli and I are staying here for the week. I need time to think. I'm not comfortable with your mom being around him anymore. That's not up for debate. His reply? I get that you're upset, but this is going too far. She's his grandma. I didn't even answer. I just put my phone down, tucked Eli in beside me, and stared at the ceiling for hours. Because deep down, I knew if he couldn't see the problem by now, he probably never would. Staying at Alicia's gave me more than just space. It gave me clarity. Because when you're not stuck in the moment, not spinning in the chaos of what someone just said or how your partner just reacted, you finally have time to actually sit with the truth. And the truth was, this wasn't new. Sharon had been crossing lines since the second I got pregnant. Actually, no, scratch that. It started before that. When Derek and I got engaged, I remember the first time she looked at my ring and said, "Oh, it's modest." But I guess that's smart these days. Practical. And then smiled like she hadn't just backhanded me with that comment. I laughed it off at the time. I think I said something like, yeah, I like simple. But I remember the way my stomach flipped. That little voice in the back of my mind that whispered, wait, was that rude or I'm bugging? And then no, I'm probably being sensitive. That was her power. Sharon never screamed or cursed or made a scene. She just chipped away at you. Bit by bit. With a smile. When I got pregnant with Eli, she was all over us. Showing up unannounced with baby stuff, tagging me in Facebook posts about how to be a good mother, and always making little digs about how I looked tired or swollen or not glowing like the other girls. I'll never forget one moment. I was about 7 months along, and Derek and I were building the crib. I was sitting on the floor, literally surrounded by screws and half-assembled wood, and Sharon stopped by just to say hi. She walked in, looked around, and went. "You're letting her do the nursery herself, Derek? Shouldn't we hire someone? She's not really the decorator type." The way she said let was like I was incapable. I don't know, like what even was that supposed to mean? I had picked out this adorable forest theme. Little owls and trees and warm greens. But no, Sharon wanted pastels and elephants and something more timeless. I remember feeling so defeated after she left that night. And what did Derek say when I told him it bothered me? You know how my mom is. She's opinionated. Just let her have her moment. Her moment. As if everything had to be her moment. The baby shower? She took over the guest list, changed the location, and told me I should wear something flowy to hide the puffiness. When I said I wanted a women-only thing, just close friends and family, she invited a bunch of her coworkers and her yoga instructor. I didn't even know half the people there. Derek saw how uncomfortable I was, and he still didn't say anything. I think the worst part, though, the part that stayed with me long after Eli was born, was how she acted in the hospital. I had a really rough labor. Ended up needing an emergency C-section after almost 20 hours. I was exhausted, foggy, in pain, and the first time I opened my eyes after the procedure, Sharon was in my room. Not Derek. Sharon. She was holding Eli and, I kid you not, the first thing she said was, "He's perfect. He looks just like our side of the family." Our side, like I wasn't even part of that equation. She handed him to me like I was the nurse or something. Not his mother. And, of course, when I finally brought that moment up to Derek days later, he told me I was probably just emotional from the meds. She was just excited. She didn't mean anything by it. But that was the theme, right? She didn't mean anything by it. Except when someone steps on your feelings over and over again, at some point, you have to stop wondering about intent and look at the impact. And the impact was, I felt erased. Not just for moments. From the entire experience. Sharon talked about her grandson like I was just the middleman. I remember one day when Eli was maybe 3 months old, she dropped by with some random outfit, this itchy-looking, old-fashioned sweater with his initials embroidered on it. I thanked her and said I'd try it on him later. She frowned and went, "Try? I thought we had agreed on this one. Didn't we say classic was better than all those cartoon prints you keep putting him in?" We were co-parenting or something. I just smiled, but inside I wanted to scream. I started avoiding her after that. Made excuses when she asked to come over, kept visits short and supervised. I told Derek I needed boundaries, but he acted like I was attacking her. "I get that you're still adjusting," he said once, "but she's just trying to help." No, she was trying to control. I started to lose myself. I started doubting everything I did as a mom. If Eli cried, I'd wonder if it was because I didn't warm the bottle enough, or because I was doing something wrong. If I posted a photo of him in his Halloween costume, I braced for Sharon's inevitable comment about how kids don't need all that nonsense. They need routine. Everything was a battle. Not always loud, but constant. Draining. And now, thinking back on all that from Alicia's couch, I realized just how far I'd let it go. I had let Sharon's opinions and Derek's silence rewrite my role in my own family. I wasn't just hurt after the birthday party. I was done. Here's the thing. Eli was starting to notice. He was old enough now to pick up on tones, on energy. And if he heard someone minimizing me, mocking me, calling me a surrogate like I was disposable, how long before he internalized that? How long before he started seeing me that way too? That's what snapped me back to myself. Not anger. Not even sadness. But fear that I'd spent so long trying to keep the peace. I forgot to protect the one person who mattered more than anything. My son. A few days after the party, Derek came to see me at Alicia's. It wasn't dramatic or anything, he just knocked like we were neighbors instead of husband and wife. Alicia opened the door, raised an eyebrow at him, and said, "She's in the kitchen. Don't try anything stupid," before walking off with her mug like she was watching a slow-burn drama unfold. Honestly, loved that woman. I was sitting at the table with Eli, who was focused on his dinosaur sticker book. When he saw Derek, he perked up. "Daddy," he shouted, scrambling out of his chair. Derek scooped him up and held him close, whispering something into his ear I couldn't hear. It hit me hard, seeing them like that. Eli was so happy. So unaware of how messy everything had gotten. Derek set him down and told him to show Auntie Alicia his T-Rex while he and I talked. So we sat. Not across from each other, side by side. Like two people trying to remember how to be on the same team. And for a while we just sat there, not saying anything. Finally, he let out this long sigh and said, "Look, I'm sorry about what my mom said." I nodded. "Okay, but that's not enough." He blinked. "What do you mean?" I turned to face him. "You can't just apologize for her, like it makes everything okay. She's not your kid, Derek. She's your mother. If she can't respect me, especially in front of Eli, then she doesn't get to be around us." He looked panicked. "You don't mean that." "I do. You want to cut her off completely?" Over one comment. No, I said, took a breath and lowered my voice. Not one comment. Years of comments. Years of digs and control and undermining me. You just didn't see it because she never aimed it at you. He rubbed his hands over his face like he was trying to shake something off. She's always been like this. It's how she shows love. I laughed, dry and bitter. Then her version of love sucks. He stared at the table, and for a second, I thought he might actually get it. Like, really see it for the first time. But then he said, can't we just sit down and talk it out? All three of us? Set some boundaries or whatever. Boundaries or whatever. Like this was some light misunderstanding. Like I could just write a list of rules and Sharon would suddenly treat me like a person instead of a vessel who popped out her grandchild. Derek, I said, if she wanted to fix this, she'd be the one knocking on this door. She'd be the one apologizing, not you doing damage control like always. He was quiet again. And then he dropped this little bomb. She didn't mean it literally. I was like, excuse me? She didn't mean you're just the surrogate. It was just a bad joke. She was nervous. Oh, okay, so now she's a comedian? You think calling me a surrogate in front of our son is her way of easing the tension? He tried to backtrack. I'm not saying it was okay. No, you're saying it wasn't that bad. You're still protecting her. He leaned back like I'd slapped him. That's when I realized this wasn't about Sharon anymore. It was about Derek. The fact that he always expected me to shrink. Me to adjust. Me to give her the benefit of the doubt. But when had he ever drawn a line? Never. He sat there looking at me like I was the one throwing away the family. But I wasn't throwing anything away. I was saving myself. I'm not coming home, I said finally. Not unless things change. He looked up, his eyes wide. Are you serious? Yes. You want your mom to be part of our lives? She needs to own what she did to me and to Eli. And if she can't, then no, she doesn't get to see him. Silence. Then he stood up and just left. You know, as much as I hated that woman, and as furious as I was at Derek, cutting someone out of your life, especially someone so tangled into it, it hurts. And all of a sudden, he called 2 days later, and I could tell from his voice that he was treading carefully, like he was walking across eggshells that were already cracked. Hey, he said. Can we talk in person? I almost said no, but something about the way he asked, quiet, tired, not defensive, made me say, fine. Just you, not her. We met at a park near Alicia's. Eli was with her for the afternoon, so it was just the two of us on a bench by the playground. It was cold out, and he brought 2 coffees, just like old times. Mine even had oat milk and cinnamon, just the way I like it. A tiny gesture, but it still hit me in the chest. He looked exhausted, even older somehow. Like the past few weeks had aged him. I talked to her, he said finally. Tried to explain everything. How serious this is. How much she hurt you. She doesn't get it, he admitted. She said you're overreacting. That you twisted her words. That this is your way of keeping Eli from her. I was like, yeah, of course she did. He looked at me then, and for the first time, he looked like he actually saw me. I think I've been in denial, he said, for a long time, about how toxic she is. I always just told myself that's how she is. I didn't realize how much of her behavior you'd been carrying alone. It wasn't an apology, but it was more than I'd gotten in years. She's not coming around again, he added. Not unless she changes. I told her that, and I meant it. Like, that made my throat tighten. Are you serious? I am. I picked her for so long. I didn't even realize I was losing you. I had to look away, because the tears were right there again. But this time, they weren't angry or bitter. They were just sad. And maybe a little hopeful. I don't know if I can come back, I said softly. I get it. But I want Eli to have both his parents. I want him to grow up knowing he's safe, that I have his back. And then he said, can we take it one day at a time? No pressure. No pretending everything's fixed. Just start over. And weirdly, that made me feel safer than if he'd come begging for forgiveness. Because starting over meant we were both admitting the old version of us wasn't working. That we had to build something new and healthier. So I agreed. We didn't move back in right away. I kept staying at Alicia's, and he came over for dinner a few times a week. We'd take Eli to the park or eat pizza on the floor while watching Encanto for the 1000th time. Eli was just happy to see us together again. The tension didn't hang in the air like it used to. He wasn't walking on eggshells, and honestly, neither was I. One night, about 2 weeks later, Derek brought over a stack of our old photo albums. He said Eli had been asking about baby pictures, and we all ended up on the couch going through them. And there was this one picture, me, holding Eli for the first time in the hospital, eyes puffy, hair a mess, but smiling like my heart had cracked wide open in the best way. Eli pointed and said, Mommy, you look like a superhero. And I just lost it, because in that moment I realized something. No matter what Sharon ever said, no matter what she tried to take from me, that boy knew who his mother was. Not because of biology, not because of titles, because of love. Pure love. The kind that stays up at 2 a.m., singing lullabies and cleaning throw up off bedsheets. The kind that packs school lunches with tiny notes inside. The kind that shows up again and again, even when it's freaking hard. So that was the season I started rebuilding. Not just my routines or my relationship with Derek, but myself. I don't think I realized how much of me had been chipped away over the years, quietly, slowly, until I had that space to actually sit with my thoughts and not feel like I was constantly defending my worth. I signed up for therapy. Like real, consistent, dig into the trauma and sit in the uncomfortable stuff therapy. I didn't even know where to start in the first session, so I just kind of word vomited everything about Sharon. The comments, the undermining, the way I'd swallowed every insult to keep the peace. My therapist just looked at me and said, "It sounds like you've spent years shrinking yourself so other people wouldn't feel uncomfortable." One of the first real changes I made was how I let people talk to me, even outside my marriage. Friends, family, coworkers, I started saying things like, "Actually, that doesn't work for me," or "I need to think about that before I commit," you know? And let me tell you, people were not used to that version of me. Some friends pulled away, which sucked, but it also made it easier to see who really had my back. Alicia, obviously, stayed in my corner the whole time. She was like my emotional bodyguard, reminding me that boundaries don't make you mean, they make you safe. Derek, to his credit, was still doing the work too. He started going to therapy himself, which, I'll be real, I didn't expect. But he told me, "I need to figure out why I let her treat you that way, why I thought it was okay." And even though I still didn't trust him fully, I respected that. We weren't magically fixed. This wasn't some cheesy rom-com where everything wraps up with a kiss in the rain and boom, all better. There were hard conversations. One night, he said, "I keep thinking about all the times I let her belittle you, and I hate myself for it." And I told him, "I don't need you to hate yourself. I need you to never let it happen again." He called her one last time, a final conversation I didn't even ask for. He told me about it afterward. "She still thinks you overreacted," he said. "But I told her if she ever wants to be in Eli's life again, she needs to apologize. Directly to you. And she needs to accept your boundaries." I laughed, kind of bitter. "So, she's basically out forever?" He didn't argue, just nodded. "Yeah, probably." And honestly, the old me would have clung to the hope that one day she'd come around, say the right things, become the grandmother I imagined for Eli. But now, I don't think I need that anymore. Eli had people who showed up. He had love, consistency, and laughter. He didn't need her brand of twisted affection. And I didn't need to keep twisting myself into knots to be enough or whatever for someone who had already decided I was less than. One night months later, we were watching Finding Dory, Eli's new obsession, and he crawled into my lap out of nowhere, hugged me tight, and whispered, "You're the best mommy in the world." And I just held him and thought, "Yep, baby, I am." So here's something nobody really tells you. When you finally cut off a toxic person, like really slam the door and bolt it shut, the silence that follows is both freeing and unnerving. At first, I kept expecting some big, dramatic confrontation. Like Sharon would show up at our door, tears in her eyes, begging to see Eli. Or she'd send some weird letter about family unity and forgiveness with passive-aggressive Bible quotes. But nothing came. And I realized, like, that was the message. She didn't see anything wrong with what she said, with what she did. She didn't miss us enough to even fake an apology. I wasn't a real person to her, just an obstacle. The surrogate, the nanny, the woman who gave birth to her grandchild and dared to think she mattered. It meant all those years I'd bent over backwards to keep the peace, they were never going to earn me respect. I'd wasted so much energy trying to win the approval of someone who was never going to give it. I'd do it all over again to protect my son from growing up thinking that's how you treat people and that love comes with conditions, that women are only worthy if they stay silent and pretty and useful. No, I'm not gonna let that happen. Derek saw it too eventually. We were at the park one afternoon, just the three of us. Eli was playing with another kid on the swings, and this older woman sitting on the bench nearby struck up small talk with us. She asked if this was our only child. I said yes. She smiled and said, "Well, he's lucky to have such a devoted mama." And without skipping a beat, Derek said, "She's not just a devoted mama, she's the reason this family is still standing." I swear I nearly choked on my water. That was the first time he publicly, genuinely acknowledged me, not just as Eli's mom, not just as his wife, but as the one who held it all together when everything almost fell apart. And that felt better than 1,000 apologies. But I still had work to do, like internal work. I realized I didn't want to go back to the version of me I was before all this. I wanted to become someone new, someone stronger. So I made this little list. I called it my reclamation list. It had stuff like, take a solo weekend trip, no guilt, no checking in. Reconnect with my love for painting because I hadn't touched a brush in years. Have an uninterrupted, phone-free dinner with a friend once a week. Wear the dress even if it shows my stretch marks. And finally, tell people no and actually mean it. So slowly, I started living on my own terms again. It's been almost a year and something, a full rotation around the sun since Sharon opened her mouth and called me just the surrogate in front of my son. And I haven't seen her since. No calls, no texts, no birthday cards for Eli. No third-party messengers trying to guilt me into family therapy, nothing. At first it was weird, to be completely honest. Holidays were quiet, there was no chaos, no last-minute drama, no one rearranging my house or undermining me in my own kitchen. But then I noticed things like Eli laughing freely during Thanksgiving dinner, not being told to sit up straighter or don't talk with your mouth full, or me actually tasting my food instead of nervously anticipating a backhanded comment, or Derek rubbing my back at the table whispering, "This is better, isn't it?" We started some new traditions too. We do this thing called Yes Days now, one day a month, usually a Saturday, where we say yes to whatever Eli wants. The first time he asked to wear his Spider-Man costume to brunch, and we all joined in. Derek wore a Captain America hoodie, and I was Wonder Woman. We looked ridiculous. Sharon would have rolled her eyes so hard that they would fall out of her skull. And I think that's something more moms, more women in general, need to hear right now. You are allowed to leave. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to say no more and absolutely mean it, even if that means people think you're cold or ungrateful or dramatic. Because they weren't the ones crying in the laundry room. They weren't the ones staying up late Googling how to handle a narcissistic mother-in-law while pretending everything was fine. They weren't the ones holding their kid's hand while being erased from the narrative. You were. So your voice matters. And mine? It finally got loud enough to say, I'm done. I didn't just walk away from Sharon. I walked toward a life where I'm no longer an accessory, no longer a placeholder. I'm the mother. I'm the woman who rebuilt her sense of self from the ground up. I'm the protector of my peace. And the example my son will look to when he learns how to treat women with respect, with empathy, and with the understanding that no one is just anything. So no, Sharon hasn't heard from us. And unless she's had a personality transplant, she never will. And I'm good with that. Better than good. I'm finally fully free.